This week on the Austin Healey channel, we test the Overdrive before we shift gears and start getting Season 1 ready for the spring. Let's talk about transmissions, specifically the one sitting in front of us. Now, I've been online and looked, hey, what oil should I put in my transmission? And it's not an easy answer. I mentioned earlier we'd talk about it, so that's what we're going to do. There are many schools of thought, a lot of information out there. I'm going to tell you what I've chosen, but that doesn't mean you have to choose that. You need to make your own decision because it's your transmission. To understand what oil to put in it, you need to understand a little bit about oil. I guess back in 1954, oil was a little bit different. It was all old dinosaurs or mineral oil. There was no synthetic oil. It was all a fixed weight. It didn't have the split weights or multigrades that we have now. And it didn't have detergents in it to keep the engine clean. So the service manual and the factory, the engineers recommend putting motor oil in the transmission. This was great because the transmission has brass parts. The Overdrive uses the oil as a kind of like a hydraulic oil because it's pumping it and it's using that pressure to move stuff around. And it doesn't have a filter. So with all of that in mind, we need an oil that kind of replicates the oil back in 1954. What I've chosen is a SAE 30 non-detergent mineral oil. So let's go through why I chose that. SAE 30, it's 30 weight oil. I think that's what was in the owner's manual. Use a 30 weight oil, engine oil. So that should match that grade. I've also heard of people using MT20-50 with good success. Anyway, I chose a 30 weight oil. I found a special non-detergent version of it. The detergents are designed to pick up stuff in the engine and carry it over to the oil filter and filter it out, so it cleans the engine. The transmission doesn't have a filter, so it doesn't have that. So if it picks something up, it'll carry it all over the transmission, all over the gears, and it'll continue grinding, and that's no good. So we want an oil where the bits will settle out of it. So we have non-detergent, mineral oil, single grade, and that should do it for us. I'm going to put it in and see how it works. The Overdrive on the back of the transmission is kind of a fragile thing. So there's lots of things to protect it. These are electronic things. There is a switch that keeps it from engaging when you're in first gear or in reverse. Reverse would be even worse. There's a switch that prevents it from engaging when the engine's spinning, not spinning very fast. It's a centrifugal switch. This is only on the BN1s. This was later taken out. There's also a switch on the throttle pedal. So if you mash down on the throttle, it disengages the overdrive. This all protects the overdrive from being over-torqued. So over-torquing the overdrive is too much over. On this BN1, there should be 2 relays that prevent the overdrive from engaging. I currently only have 1. Still looking for a source for the second one, but that doesn't mean we can't start testing the other things. We can test the centrifugal switch, the throttle switch, and the gear selection switch, all pretty simply. We can also test the solenoid, and we can even put the car in gear and make it switch without all those protections, as long as we're very careful. So let's start here and work backwards. This is a solenoid. It's simply an electromagnet that pulls this up, and it throws a switch inside that causes it to engage. That's fairly simple to test. Well, at least to see if it pulls, you just give it some power. You see it works rather well. Now inside here there's actually two coils. There's one coil that lifts it up, there's another coil that holds it in place, and there's a switch in there, and it switches between one coil and the other. The first coil, the lifting coil, has more power than the holding coil. If for some reason you just end up with the lifting coil working and you're driving along with the overdrive, it will eventually burn out the coil, and then you have to replace it. One way to test that would be with an amp meter on here. When it first goes, it'll pull a lot of amps, and then it should go down to fewer amps after that. But it looks like it's moving rather freely and easily, so that looks pretty good. Next, we need to test some of the lockout features. I think the easiest to test first will be the gear selection switch. This switch is down here, and we're going to test it with our multimeter. Right now it reads there's infinite amount of resistance, because these aren't touching. When they touch, like when a switch goes together, it goes down to 0. You can also measure resistors and all sorts of stuff with this, but we're just going to see if we have any current going through here. First gear, reverse. When it shifts over, even in neutral, right there, when you're ready to go into second or third, sorry, second's up there, third's down here, it goes from open to no resistance. So that switch is working perfectly. The throttle switch appears not to be working. It looks like we're going to have to do a little bit of diagnostic work on that. It's supposed to work in such a way so when you don't have your foot on the pedal all the way, you're just cruising along, it's in contact. It allows the energy to pass, and then when you mash down on the pedal, say you're passing a Porsche or something like that, then it will disengage the overdrive, protecting it from over torquing, and allow it to downshift, if you will. But this switch doesn't seem to be working. It's also making a funny noise inside. So I think we ought to take it apart and see what it's doing. This is pretty simple to open. There's just these little tabs. We need to get enough of them open to remove this cover. So just that to get it started. You can get on it with pliers. There you go. So every part tells a story. You can hear the spring moving around. and it's riding in here, and I don't know if you can see that in there. It's burnt right there. So that part there has gone up and touched right here and shorted out. So I'm not entirely sure why that happened, but it did happen. This cam here is what goes and pushes this little lever, and you can see it separates that contact right there. Now we need to figure out if that contact is just dirty or corroded or whatever. So we just have our I'm not getting anything across there. Oh, there is something. If I push them together, they seem to work. I think we're just going to clean it up a bit and see if we can get it to work better. So to clean the contacts, I just have some, what is this, 600 grit. I have it doubled over. Just shove it in there. And that should be a whole lot better. Let's test it again, see where we're at. Alright, I think that's working. So we're going to put it all back together. Put some new sealant on this. Maybe I'll make a new gasket. So right here, it's connected. The pedal's kind of at idle, in neutral position. And it's there. You give it some gas, you really get on it, and it disconnects. So what we're going to do now is bench test it by starting up the engine, which will run the transmission, and then we'll be able to flip the switch and see if it engages and causing the transmission to spin faster. So I have it in third gear. You want to make sure not to have it in reverse if you're going to bypass all the security measures. There's no load on it, so I'm not worried about any of the other safety features about it being over-torqued. So that's good. I'm going to start it up. I don't have water in the engine, so we're not going to run it long, just enough to do a test. So that test, I think, was very successful. I don't know if you could see it on the camera, but I had the speedometer kind of hooked up. I'm missing the 90-degree transition piece right out of the transmission, but it went in well enough to get a reading on the speedometer. It showed that when I engaged the overdrive at the same RPM, that the speed increased. So that means it's working, which is fantastic news. So with that, I'm very happy. I was also able to see that the rear seal on the transmission is leaking. Luckily, I have that on order, so we'll replace that before it goes back into the car. So we have something on the front, the water pump, and something on the back, this rear seal, to replace before we can put it in the car. It's Monday, and this weekend things really changed. It went from, not in one day, but within a week, it went from -10 to +20. And that's a huge difference. The first really nice day of the year was on Saturday. So what happens on the first really nice weekend? You guessed it, everybody gets their car out. So I had taken the season 1 car and gotten it out, but it needs some detailing and some cleaning. I guess detailing is cleaning. And there's some oil leak issues I want to address, and just it needs some love. So the rest of this week, I'm going to bring it down to the shop and clean up. So this is all the testing and playing we can do on the season 2, because I got to get season 1 ready to show off and so it can get sold. But I'm very happy with the transmission. We'll have a little more work to do before the engine can all go back into the car, but everything seems to be working. There is one more test I want to do before I put this away. It's to check the clutch. So I need to pull this lever to see if it releases. Right now I have it in 3rd gear and it doesn't move at all, which is good. That's what it's supposed to do. I have the clamp. I'm going to put it on the lever and squeeze it a bunch. And then it turns just like it's supposed to. That's fantastic. It means it's disengaging as it should. And it's locked again. Come to think of it, I didn't test the centrifugal switch while it was running. But that's pretty easy to get to even after it's in the car. Basically, you just want the transmission running to see if it throws that switch. So maybe we'll do that later. But that's all the time we have on it for now, because I got to get back to season 1 and get it ready to be sold. So it's been a long winter, lots of cold, lots of rain. Season 1 hadn't been out of the garage in a long time. It's now down here in this garage, giving me the opportunity to clean it up, detail it, and get it ready for the spring. I'm not going to make a video of me detailing it. It's just cleaning. It's very meticulous, very boring, and it takes a very, very long time. It's Friday now, and I'm maybe halfway through, so I have a lot more to do. Probably next week's going to be all about cleaning as well. There's just, you know, you drive them on the road and dirt gets everywhere. It's amazing. And I'm very much used to seeing it, you know, perfectly finished, like it just came out of the factory. So I have a lot of cleaning I want to do to get it ready to sell. If you're interested in buying it, you know, drop me a line, or if you know somebody who's interested in buying it. I really need to make room in the garage for my other projects.
If you want to come along on the ride as we complete this project, click the subscribe button. If you want YouTube to tell you every time there's a new video, click the alarm bell. Thanks for watching, and your support is very much appreciated.